All right. We're live. First time using this platform. Taylor Vaughn, welcome to the Heart Dealer podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I was like, I don't know if she'll say yes. I'm just going to ask. And when you did, I said, yay.
Yeah, why not? I mean, I never get to be the one being interviewed, so it's kind of fun.
Cool. Before this, the first thing I did was I checked my email and I went to my sent box because I live and die by the sent box in terms of like historical records. I've got almost, about a quarter million emails in the sent box going back 20 years. And our first correspondence was when we were still puregrainaudio.com. And that
Mhm.
was February 9, 2015. And it was
Holy
for
shit.
a while. It was for a Godsmack spring tour when you were at Republic.
Yep, that sounds completely accurate. And yeah, you guys have been great. Working with you all these years has been awesome.
I looked a little further and I was just shy of 200 emails in my sent box between you and me alone.
Oh gosh,
So
I'm sorry.
that's okay. You're
I'm surprised
busy.
it's not more actually, to be honest with you.
Um, it's a lot of communication, and you've been amazing, and you've been constantly like changing spots. I shouldn't say constantly, but there has been a lot of change, which is a good thing,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about. First and foremost, while creeping your IG, I noticed you might have recently been married.
Yes, I did. I got married in May, um, May 24th. So
Congrats.
thank you very much. It was a beautiful day, and I'm also very happy to not have to plan a wedding anymore.
What's worse, planning a marketing campaign for a band or a wedding?
Definitely planning a wedding because, you don't have family involved in an artist marketing campaign. There's a lot of it's just I was very lucky that I had a great fiancé who helped a lot. It wasn't like I was doing the whole thing and he just showed up. We did everything kind of 50 very much 50-50. But I will say in an artist, PR campaign, there's definitely a level of professionalism when it comes to doing things, whereas you'd be surprised how emotional people get over flowers and place settings and things that are just yeah. So anyway, but I'm very happy that we had a beautiful, perfect day and, last wedding that I'll ever plan. Let's just put it that way.
Well,
Thank
congratulations.
you.
Was there ever a moment during the wedding planning where you're like, "Oh man, this feels like what I do at work"?
Yeah, I think, it was very interesting because I loved my wedding planner a lot. I think that if anything, she wasn't used to somebody who is so used to logistics and used to planning. So I felt like my now husband and I would get all this stuff done and then be like, okay, now what? Like we were very used to like lots of logistics, figuring things out. And I felt like the wedding planning process is very similar to, okay, you have to tell people when to show up. You have to tell people how long they're going to be there. And um, so, yeah, it is a little bit similar.
Cool. You were born in Beverly, Massachusetts, I believe, who grew
hmm
up doing musical theater and singing. What was family life like for you? How did you get into singing and music?
So, there was a chorus director that I had in middle school, and like everybody did chorus. It was like just, he was really like a fun guy. Everyone loved doing chorus with him. Um, but I think I started singing just because it was, like, what the cool kids were doing, and then I remember there was one day that he was doing auditions for, like, solos, and I'm like, "Oh, I'll try," and he, after I auditioned, was like, "So when are you gonna take singing lessons?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "What?" He's like, "No, really, when are you gonna start taking singing lessons?" And he kept saying that until I was like, "Fine, I'll go take singing lessons," and I just started musical theater from there and kept singing and, just always fell in love with music. Like, I think my parents were just really excited that, they were always really encouraging of me following my passions and, I just loved being on stage and the way that emotion kind of transmits via song and music, it's still to this day, like, one of my favorite things. Like, if there's a song that emotes makes you feel something and kinda breaks you out of your day to day, like, those are always gonna be my favorite songs, so,
Cool.
yeah.
I haven't asked this before, maybe because it only just occurred to me, but within your world, within the work that you do within the music industry, does it help knowing like some semblance of performance? You said you know what it's like to sing and get up on stage. Like, does it help what you do? Being able to put yourself in the shoes of the artist?
I mean, I definitely wouldn't say that I'm any like, I like to sing, I can sing well. I would never say that I am a vocal coach expert by any means. I definitely do understand the importance of warming up, the importance of saving your voice, the importance of, not speaking a lot before, a big show or something like that. I definitely have, transparently, there are some artists that put songs out and then they suddenly realize that they can't really sing those songs live every single day. So there have been times when I've started working with somebody and I'm like, there's no way they can sing this live. There's no way. And sometimes they surprise me and they very much can and they're super talented. And other times, you kind of realize that they're like pitching things down or, sometimes what people create in the studio isn't always something that they can repeat night after night, day after day. Um, so yeah, I'd say it's helped me in a way. It's also different. Musical theater is so different from stage performance, and stage performance is also so different from TV performance. So in that, I wouldn't really say the skills translate, but I would say learning how to take care of yourself definitely does.
Cool. And then you can impart that knowledge on artists if they need it.
Yeah, totally.
So you hit James Madison University. You studied marketing, minored in music or in the music industry. Then somehow you end up at Motown Records for an internship. And then you're like, oh, music, I like this. So what's the transition? How did you get from university into this internship and then start your career?
Yeah, so I actually applied to this program. I don't even know if it exists anymore, but it's called University of Dreams and they basically like helped align you with internships of places that you wanted to go. I mean, fully transparently, like uh it was kind of like a paid thing. So they helped you get into certain internships. So I was very fortunate and privileged that I was able to A, afford and B, go to New York and do these internships. Um, so I was matched up with Motown Records in their publicity department. And as I think I was like a sophomore or junior in college, and I was like, "Oh, well, publicity and marketing are the same thing. I'll just do publicity." They're not the same thing. They're so completely different, and I'm very happy that I had that experience because I love people who do marketing. I think they're incredibly great, and marketing and PR do have a lot of crossovers, but they are extremely different. Obviously, marketing has a lot to do with, the actual sale behind a product and the numbers and advertising and, publicity is the intangible, unpaid media, coordinating television and red carpets and interviews and things like that. So it's very different in terms of the different approaches. I was drawn to publicity from that internship because I learned that a lot of publicity has to do with the intangibility of the imaging behind an artist. What is the overall sentiment? What is the overall appeal? As opposed to like, what do sales look like? How do we get those numbers higher? Do we discount the album? Do we try to, do certain things? So yeah, that's kind of how it all came about.
Amazing. PR and marketing, very different, as you just noted. Imagine we're in an elevator and you're giving me that, really quick elevator pitch before I jump off. And I say, what's the difference between publicity or PR and marketing? And you very succinctly say,
I would say PR is unpaid media and aligning I'm trying to say this in a 30-second elevator pitch. I would say, it's unpaid media and aligning the narrative of an artist with the overall public sentiment. Meaning, you know, like, I always ask artists, like, "What do you want people to know about you?" Because, by the way, nobody cares that you have a song out. Everyone has
Yeah.
a song. But what is that sentence that people are saying after, "Oh, this artist has a new song, and did you know that he, has toured with all these people, is an amazing guitarist, has had mental health and or is an advocate for, animal rights." What is that sentence after you say, "Oh, this artist has a new song out?" Because a lot of times people will think that the public sentiment is one thing, and in reality it's not.
Yeah.
Like, how many artists, I felt like it was a long time, not necessarily now, but in the beginning of his career, like John Mayer, who I've not worked with, but this is just an example. It took people a while to realize how good of a guitar player he was. It was like, "Oh, he's got these, like, great songs," and it took the public a while to realize, no, he's not only just a great singer-songwriter, but he's an incredible guitar player.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of an example of, like, things misaligning. And the 30-second elevator pitch is, again, for marketing, is just marketing is the, sales and the manipulation of a product within the public market, either by discounting or advertising or things that you pay for in order to create awareness and or, like, desire to buy
Yeah.
opportunities.
I mean, it almost sounds like, from what you're saying, one is about the story behind the artist, and the other is about the physical product that the artist has.
Yeah, definitely. 1,000%. I mean, what we in publicity, what you end up having to do is, you are at the end of the day selling a thing. Um, you're selling a person, you're selling that brand, but but marketing specifically is like, we are selling a song, we are selling a tour, we are
Yeah.
selling a tangible thing.
Awesome. I appreciate that. I froze for a second, so hopefully we're we're all good. Um, do you still write the press releases? I
Oh,
mean, yeah,
oh yeah. I will say transparently, there were a time when at other firms, there are people who that's all their job is to write press releases, either an outside person or somebody within the company.
yeah,
But I write all of my own press releases at my current job. Um, and I mean, I actually really enjoy it. I used to fear writing press releases when I was starting out. But now that I've been doing it for so long, I'm not gonna say it's formulaic, but you kind of learn what to add and how to say things in a way that hopefully get journalists interested and
yeah.
media interested to wanna write about your artist.
What would you say is that special sauce? What's the most important thing in crafting or drafting a solid PR that's going to turn heads?
I mean, there's so many schools of thought on that, to be honest. For some people, it's like shorter is better. For other people, it's, making sure that all of the narrative is in there, all of the information you need. I personally subscribe to the school of, like, a little bit of both. I think it's important to have a narrative, but for people listening, like, what I mean by long versus short is, an example of a short press release headline could be, Taylor Vaughn releases new song off of debut album Taylor Vaughn's music today. And a long example of that could be Taylor Vaughn releases beautiful, historically brilliant album describing the nuances of popular culture in the landscape of something, I don't know, today.
Yeah.
So it's a difference of, like, adding a little bit more descriptors in order to draw people in, perhaps. Um, and I think, for me, I tend to I always kinda subscribe to, again, a little bit of both, but if anything, I try to drive my press releases I add probably a lot more information about like what's happening with them on social media. Is there, somebody in the public space that might be a notable name that's recently, said they were a fan of theirs? Just trying to like add in like the 360 content of what's going on with them as opposed to just, oh, hey, they have a new song out. They're from here. They're on tour. I like to, because a lot of things are about social media these days. So if there's, oh, they recently teased the song with this video of them talking about their childhood, like linking out to that video, which sounds very elementary. You're like, yeah, of course, Taylor. Like, why wouldn't you do that? But at the end of the day, even if you don't write about this artist, that's still another person going to their social media pages, possibly following them, even if they're not necessarily ready for coverage right now.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we tell the, younger or budding artists, aspiring artists that we work with on the B13 music side, specifically artist development, is press releases aren't the be all end all. They are important, and we try to like make sure you have what we call a marketable moment every 4 weeks, roughly. Like what are we going to tell people? The
Mhm.
algorithm's going to stop
Yeah,
caring about you if you don't constantly have something to share. So it's not that, oh my God, the press release is going to change everything, but the press release justifies the publicist to then go back to those publications and knock on the door and say, it's me again. I've got
totally.
another thing to talk about this artist.
Yeah.
Uh, what do you think?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think, you know, a lot a lot of time when I was at Republic, and this is no shade to Republic, this is just like how sometimes labels work where, say things were stalling at radio and somebody would be like, the radio team would be like, well, nothing's going on. Like, what? I don't have anything to bring to my radio program. And so, like, tell them something new. And so, people would say, well, what's going on with marketing? And I say, well, what's going on with press? And people would kind of like pass the buck of like, well, what's
Mm,
going on? So I think that's overall, not just press, always super important because again, like you said, every single time you're hitting somebody's inbox, which again, you said it yourself, like just between the two of us, we had over 200 exchanges. I mean, writers get so much in their inbox every day. And, it's our job to be like, hey, I know you didn't respond to my last note, but like, just FYI, this new thing happened. And you kind of like build on top of what's going on. I mean, there have been artists where I was working and sending things out about them for a year before we got our first television interview, or excuse me, television performance, or even just like major look in general. Somebody wanted to write about them just because either they were starting out or there maybe wasn't a lot of activity, but your job is to like constantly build up that, hey, this is happening and this is happening and this is happening. Cause to your point, yeah, it's not only just people's inboxes, but it's like the algorithms, you know, people's attention spans are a lot less. So yeah, I think that's super important.
agreed. I'd be curious. You talked about it earlier, like unpaid promotion. There's been, from what I've seen, a large shift since the pandemic to, I mean, there's fewer publications now, and more of the publications are saying, like, well, advertising is not what it used to be. Sponsored content, sponsored posts, pay to play. Uh, I'm a small publisher compared to like a Rolling Stone, and also we're a small company compared to some of the ones that you work for. What's your perspective on how the music and entertainment media landscape has changed?
I mean, yeah, that's another one that I think to be honest, I personally feel like we're kind of in the middle of all of that. And what I mean is, transparently back in the day, if somebody came to me as a publication and said, hey, I'll write about your artist and it'll be X amount of money, it was an immediate no. It was like, we don't do that. That's because there is, on one side, there is something to be said for, journalism at its core is supposed to be not necessarily neutral, but like the conflict of interest of paying somebody for a piece then puts into question is this just advertising? Right. And again, as we talked about, the whole point of media is, or PR is, unpaid media. And that also goes into the impartiality of the person writing. If I'm paying you to write a piece about me, um, who's to say you couldn't just pay a ton of money
Mm,
down the line and have somebody write this amazing piece in X publication? Now, that being said, people need to get paid, people need to eat, people need to, do what they need to do in today's world. I mean, I am also seeing a lot of it in, I think that the landscape of media is also changing to from where print was king and then .com was kind of like nudging that up. Now social media is nudging that up as well. I think all of them still have their places in respective audiences. I do think that the landscape is changing. People want to see more, specifically when it comes to music media and talent media, so like celebrities and music. People want to relate to you, and the best way to do that is to see you on camera.
mhm,
If you look at the Wicked press campaign, I've said this and I will say this to the cows come home, that campaign will be studied for years to come. A lot of it was strictly video interviews. It was a lot of personality, and they promote it for a really long time. Um I to get back to your question specifically about, the paid media stuff, transparently, if you have within your marketing budget or your budget as an artist or, as somebody managing an overall budget for a campaign and it does make sense for you, that's something to consider. Um, there are publications that are paying or that are asking for payment for things like a digital cover or a blog post or a review. And again, I think that just you kind of have to weigh that individually with what you personally align with and what kind of makes the most sense, right? I do also see it a lot with social media stuff. I see a lot of people starting to charge for certain posts and certain things. And again, like get your money. People need to eat. People, you know, the I think we're kind of still in like the wild wild west of where that's going to shake out, because the average consumer is never going to see something and go, "Oh, they definitely paid for that cover."
yeah,
They just don't know. They see their artist looking a certain way on a cover or in an interview, and they're really excited. So, I think it's ever evolving and changing. I personally don't necessarily have the answer. Like, I think it's whatever aligns best with, again, your budget, your goals. But there are still, again, if you're able to land a front page of the arts and entertainment issue for the New York Times in print, that's still one of the biggest goals, right? Like people want to be on the cover of Rolling Stone. Um, it's harder and harder to get those things. So in the meantime, you have to figure out how you amplify yourself and your narrative and your vision for your art in other ways.
yeah.
And obviously there's a massive jump between putting out a song and then being on the cover of Rolling Stone.
Of course, of course. I tend to agree with you. I think that things have changed tremendously. We typically go back to our artists saying organic SEO, focus on that. Go old school, find your good blogs, find your good publications where you can get interviews, news, features, reviews, etc. Um, Go to different tools that you might have available, like the submit hubs, and focus maybe on radio because you can get really good results submitting to radio through submit hub and the like. Push your publicist to try to find more playlisting options, maybe do some podcasts, leverage your own socials, share with other socials or other people that are into your band. You have to kind of do a much wider campaign. You have to be
Totally.
tactical, more so now than ever before. And I think it's okay to pay for some stuff as long as it's um, unbiased or make sense within the campaign. I mean, there's some artists where it won't make sense because what they're talking about is, or their music is different than the other artist, and
Yeah,
theirs happens to talk about, like, cars and racing. So maybe there's opportunities there to tie in. So it's case by case.
I completely agree. I mean, it is so individual, and there is no one formula. I mean, I think I can't remember who said it. Somebody commented on a post the other day about the music industry, and if you're the person whoever it was who said it, well done. I can't remember who it was. But they were basically like, the one constant in the music industry is change and
Yeah,
evolution and being, oh
yeah,
no, the one constant in the music industry is the ability to pivot. And that is so incredibly true, because I think where the music industry and where honestly sometimes older executives, not to be ageist, it's just the fact that if they're used to doing a certain thing a certain way, you know, people get in trouble when they get stuck and they're unwilling to change.
yeah.
And I think that is the issue. I mean, when I first started, and again, this is where I'm going to sound so old, but like Spotify didn't exist, Instagram didn't exist, Twitter was just starting, and I mean, Periscope and, like, going live, I remember when I was at Republic and all of that stuff started to come out, like, I wrote an email to my team being like, "This is what this is what this is," like, just so that we were able to, like, have an understanding of it. And now I was not an expert in it, it was, what I knew at the time, but I remember, and this is gonna sound funny to people, but I remember there was one publicist who was like, "Wait, so artists are just gonna go on the internet live and just do interviews with people live? Like, what if something goes wrong? We can't ever have them do that." And I remember being like, "Yeah, they are, and we're gonna have to figure it out." So, things, and now people go live all the time. They go live every day. So yeah, it's just a matter of pivoting, I think.
Agreed. Constant change. I want to definitely ask some more publicity and marketing questions, but just to keep things interesting for the listeners, viewers, why don't we talk about your career a bit?
Yeah.
Before we talk about the current one. So former Columbia, Epic Records, Republic Records, full coverage communications. You have done a lot. Lots of change. Is that we just said change is the only constant. Is that normal within, like, the roles within the majors?
Um,
And
I mean, well, Columbia, I was a temp. So I temped there for 3 months, and the great Benny Tarantini was like, "You're too good of a temp to, just be a temp. There's a full-time position at Epic Records. I'm gonna put you up for that." I was there for 3 years, and then Joe Carosa brought me over to Republic Records, where I mean, I was there at Republic for honestly, like, just shy of 10 years. And I loved my time at Republic. Unfortunately, I was laid off in one of the first rounds of mass layoffs in last year. I was at full coverage for a short time, and then honestly, my fiance, now husband, and I decided we wanted to move up to Napa, California. So I got a job with Big Feet PR, and they were flexible to have me be able to work remotely. And um so yeah, I would say, is that typical to jump around? Yes, within 15 years, definitely. If anything, as much as I loved Republic and I would have stayed there as long as they would have had me, it's actually more uncommon to be somewhere for almost 10 years. I feel like I find with, not necessarily in the music industry, but I feel like nowadays being at somewhere for like 2 to 3 years, um, is pretty common. I mean, the difference with working in music is, like I said, you're not selling things, you're selling and working with artists and people. So that takes time and relationships. It takes time to know a team and an artist, and so that's why you kinda don't see people jump as often.
what's what's like a major lesson you've learned about the record label industry that artists should know? I'm sure there's a few.
I mean, there's a few. I'm like, which one? Um, get a lawyer and a business manager first. Don't do anything unless you have those things. I mean, um, I think God, there's so many things. I think you need to make sure that this is gonna be easier said than done, but like you need to take care of yourself first. Like you cannot label this industry in general, they will work you harder than anything you've ever had to do in your life. But if you don't have a support system, a therapist, someone you trust to keep you grounded, you're just gonna burn out. Um, and that's just, I mean, also that's like life in general, right? Like take care of yourself. It's the definition of work life balance. I think, I'm trying to really, I mean,
I think I mean, it's a good point because music, entertainment, creation, being an author, making film, one could argue that that is where the boundaries between work and life blur because as an
totally.
artist, what you're creating is your work, but it is your life, you know? It's like being an entrepreneur. I mean, I have to remind myself or be reminded by my partner to stop because, dude, you've
Yeah.
just done like 13 hours. Why don't you go to sleep or whatever it is?
Yeah. I mean, and I think more and more these days, there's a big discussion being had around like artists are now expected to be content creators because they're expected to be on socials, be on TikTok, whatever. Um, and while that is very much true, I think again, going back to the biggest thing is always knowing you have to pivot. Like I had an artist say to me, like, I just want like when I started in this industry, I wanted to make a record for 2 years, put it out, tour for 2 years, and disappear for 2 years. Like, that was, like, the trajectory, and now I feel like I just have to put something out, and I constantly have to work on new stuff while creating TikToks, while doing all these things, and yeah, that sucks, like, that is a change, right? Like, that is completely a change, but what I say to people about, content and TikTok is I'm like, "Listen, do you think that Eminem wanted to go to TRL Times Square and talk to Carson fucking Daly in Times Square at TRL? Maybe he did. I don't know. Maybe he really loved it. But I guarantee you there is somebody who was like, "I don't fucking wanna go to TRL Times Square. That's lame, that's stupid, that's not me." But they
Mhm.
did it, and they became who they are today. The central hub of culture is on social media. Like, people can debate that and tell me I'm wrong, that's totally fine, and when I say social media, I mean, like, the internet, Reddit, Discord, you know, all the social media platforms, Twitch, um, there is no Times Square. That was, back in the day, like, our central hub of MTV, TRL, Times Square was, like, the lexicon of media,
Yeah.
and, if you got number 1 on TRL on the countdown, like, you had made it. There is none of that anymore. Um, Things don't mean what they used to be, and I think niche microcosm, if you what I would say is if you have fans in a certain platform and a certain place, and they are rabid diehard fans, lean into that because I think
Yeah.
niche marketing is becoming so important because there is no central hub of media. Or like I said, central hub of culture. I keep saying media, I mean culture. There is not one place that you can go and everyone in the world knows about it.
Yeah.
It's too fragmented, and that's okay because I think it allows for more micro communities. It allows for more fan, uh, experiences in certain places, but, it's where we are right now. Sorry, I feel like I'm just going on this train.
No, that's
Feel free to
okay.
feel free to take me off.
I tend to agree. Like, I've run websites for 20 years now, and there was this point in time when social media really started to take off where you would leverage socials to
Mhm,
drive traffic back to your website.
mhm.
These networks have all become so big as ecosystems that you have to treat them independently. So when we have a presence, it's not like, cool, let's get our IG followers back to the website, or let's leverage Facebook to put them over onto the email marketing list. No, we have to think about each one as its own user base, and artists need to do the same thing. And I also
Yep.
agree about leaning into it. So we do best on Instagram. That's where we have the most activity. So we lean in there. Only recently, after a really fascinating chat with Andy Shapiro from Vivo, did I really learn and realize, oh my God, YouTube is a social network. You have to leverage
Totally.
YouTube. We already had a great number there, great following. So we said, okay, let's lean into YouTube. We've had artists or clients of ours that are like, "Ah, I'm not seeing anything on Spotify. Things are not moving. I don't understand. I'm getting good pickup from like an SEO perspective. The publicist is doing a great job. Hey, I just noticed that my numbers are really starting to move on SoundCloud. Amazing. Lean into that. Learn
Yes.
everything about SoundCloud and leverage
Yeah.
that, and hopefully it'll eventually, kind of pour over and be everywhere, but focus on something focus on something niche.
Totally.
I'm a new artist. I really wanna work with V13 Music, and I say, "I just wanna get signed. Here's my album. I just wanna get signed." What would you say to that artist?
I would say if you're a new artist and you really want to get signed, and now this is not 100% my expertise because again, I'm not an A&R. I'm not, I don't necessarily sign new talent. A lot of the talent that comes to us is usually through a manager or an agent or a label that has kind of a certain amount of followers, stuff like that. Because I think you can be signed to a label and not be ready for PR. I think, if you're a brand new artist, I think it's unfortunately, the number that's next to your social media is important. But to your point, I think if you can tell a 360 picture of like, okay, so maybe I only have 5,000 followers, but I just sold out, 1,000 room venue, or I have X amount of people who bought my merch at a show, or, having a whole picture. I think you need to put together a package that's not just like, I have this song and I can sing really well, which sucks. Like you should be able to just have a great song and sing really well and be signed for your talent. Unfortunately, that's not 100% the case. So I think, going to someone and having all the information and all of the, stats about you. I think putting out songs independently is great. I think what we saw, with the TikTok boom kind of pre-COVID is that's where a lot of that was an untapped resource that I think A&R kind of jumped on very fast.
Mhm.
Um, and there are many artists who were signed and were successful off of one song on TikTok. There were also many artists who were not successful after being signed from one song on TikTok. So I think if you're a new artist, you really need to align yourself with people that are number one, excited and believe in the vision that you want for yourself as an artist,
Mhm.
and also who are able to tell you honestly, these are the things you might be missing, you know, either I can help you get those things, or I let's work together to try to get those things, or, come back to me when you have X, Y, and Z. I think the good thing is that with the change of a lot of media, you don't necessarily need to have a label right away. Like you can be there, like I was saying with just the niche microcosms of fans, like there are so many people who just put stuff out on TikTok or, my husband's a gamer and he loves watching Minecraft YouTube content. There are so many people putting things out themselves that they, you know, they're like doing it all on their own. So I think it's kind of just continuing to be your number one fan and keep pushing yourself, which sounds very, idealistic. Like, keep going, kiddo. But it's true that you need to be like, no, like I have this great song and I also have this great, you need to be your number one salesperson, because if you just go in somewhere and you're like, hey, I have this CD, will you listen to it? Like, yes, that still happens, but like, not really.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be different. I think things have changed. That's the repetition, or that's the theme for this conversation, right? Like change is the only constant. A&R, they would go out and does this person sound amazing? Do they have some cool demos? Do they have a look? Is everyone, sellable from a physical appearance standpoint? Yes, we can make this work. We're going to put money into it. Let's see what happens. Now, A&R will say like, you got a million followers on Instagram. That's fantastic. And the music's good. We can leverage this because you've already got like half of the marketing done for us.
Yep.
Uh, there have to be things going on, I think, for it to make sense for the signing. By the same token, I agree. Like, if you can, stay independent.
Yeah,
You need a team, you need support. You 100% cannot do it on yourself. It's so hard. There's so much to do. Content creation alone is a full-time job, right, for
totally.
socials. So find a team, work with a team, and see where success leads you. I agree. Uh, you've worked with a lot of artists. I don't wanna
Mhm.
go through the list, but I mean, there's like, I have a few here. Avid Brothers, James Bay, Jack Johnson of Monsters and Men, Pearl Jam, The Offspring, the list goes on. What time or which artist did you fangirl out the most over? Like, "Oh my god, I get to work this album."
Fangirl out the most over. So,
You gotta give me the dirt. Well,
I I got to work a record by William Shatner,
okay.
and I am like the biggest Star Trek fan. We put out one record. It was under, I think, one of our sub labels. I mean, they were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna be working with William Shatner," and I was like, "I volunteer. I volunteer." That was really cool. I think also too when I worked with the Avett Brothers, they did a performance on Letterman, and Brandi Carlile was singing with them, and this is before she, had gotten her Grammys, and I've been a fan of hers forever, and so I got to meet her, and that was like a big I d I introduced myself backstage at Letterman, and instead of being like the music industry cool publicist, I just completely, "I'm your biggest fan. It's so nice to meet you," and she was very kind and gracious, but kinda like, "Okay, I'm gonna go over here now." Um, so yeah, those would be my fangirl moments, I'd say.
Awesome. Uh, what motivates you to keep going? And also, where are you headed? What's your goal for this
Wow.
industry world?
What I think so I was just at Americana Fest with a bunch of our artists. And I had my artist Jonah Kagan who was doing a bunch of interviews. He just had a new album come out. And I think what motivates me is working with artists in person and really seeing the connections that I help make with media and have them, you know, sit down with a journalist, really have them tell their story, and then seeing them live and really seeing the connection of the fan, to artist relationship and how that translates from the work that we've done, right? Like, when you do get a bunch of people out to a show and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this kid's so good," or, someone saying, "Oh, I absolutely love that interview. Like, we should do more with him. Like, let's do X, Y, and Z." I think, a lot of times in PR, you can get buried in your inbox because it is a lot of just like follow-ups and not hearing from people and doing stuff over email and creating schedules. And it can be a little bit admin heavy, but I think I really thrive and get excited on those in-person moments when you are able to work with talent and, prep them before an interview. You get to know them as people. You're responsible for their deep secrets that they don't want people to know, and you're also responsible for making sure, like, "Oh, I really wanna talk about this. Like, could we get somebody to ask me about, I don't know, my dog?" "Sure, yeah, next interview, let's try to see if we can get a journalist to bring their dog, and we'll have your dog come in." It's like aligning you're helping make their dreams come true
Yeah.
in some ways, and that's, I think, my favorite part. And then where am I going? I mean, I think, so I started working with, Doug Hall at Big Feet PR, and I really admired, what he had let me backtrack. When Yola got the Best New Artist nomination, and I believe in 2019, I basically stalked that PR campaign because it was one of the best run PR campaigns I'd ever seen, and, I mean, she got every piece of press under the sun, and I was like, who is the publicist responsible for this? So I stalked him down, and we became friends, and then ended up working together on Marcus King through Republic, and he did some work with Noah Khan with the label as well. And when I was trying to find a new home, he was my first call. He's the first person who called me and was like, "You should come over here. I'm building this team." So I think what's next, honestly, is, you know, f- continuing to build the Big Feet team. I mean, I love our team that we have right now. We have Julia Casey over at Verve. We have, Doug, who has extensive experience, not only in UK, but US media. And, we have, Ashley Natarino and Natalie Barden on our team as well. And we're just really passionate about what we like to do. We love just telling artist stories. And, I think other PR firms, what we always say is like everyone's emailing the same people. Like
Yeah.
everyone's got the same list, even though they say that they don't. Everyone has the same list. But I think for us, we're really passionate behind what we do. And when we get a win, like it's a big deal. And I think we don't take that lightly because we know, again, everything's changing and it's
Yeah.
harder and harder to try to break through the noise. And when you do, it's really special. So I think, in summary, the TED Talk that I'm rambling on about is, I'd say, just continuing to, build Big Feet PR with Doug and the team. And, my personal goal, this has not happened for me, but I remember I saw Taylor Swift on her 1989 tour, and and she still does. She has like light up wristbands for every person. And I remember seeing her on that tour, and I think it was at MetLife in New York, and I was just like, I want an artist to be this big one day. I want to have an artist play a MetLife Stadium and just, have an artist be this big. And I've had people get close, but not that big yet. So still got a ways to go.
Well, you'll get there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um, what is one of, if not the most memorable or biggest win you've had from a publicity perspective where you like, I can't believe we hooked that up for this artist. Let's have some champagne.
The first thing that comes to mind was definitely when James Bay got 3 Grammy nominations, including Best New Artist on his first album. Um, because that was something that we had worked towards, oh my gosh, for like 3 years. I mean, he's from the UK, so we'd constantly have to bring him here, which is not only exhausting for him, but like coordinating things. And, you know, we worked really, really hard on positioning him to get that nomination. And not only were we able to get that nomination, but the team was able to also get him on the Grammys performing with Tori Kelly. They kinda did like a duet of their 2 songs. I mean, when I found out that he got that nomination, I cried. Like, I just someone has a video somewhere on the internet of me just, like, sobbing, falling down, to my knees when I found out, because it was just such hard work. And like, you know, as hard as artists work, I'm not going to say we work harder, because that's not true. Artists work harder than us. They physically have to do more, but we also work really hard, like, especially when you get really close to a team, you're just fighting tooth and nail and trying to make sure that your artist is kind of getting where you want to go. Um, the other one I would say would be whenever I've had an artist on Saturday Night Live. I've been fortunate to have a few, and it's always just a great moment. I mean, Saturday Night Live is still, you know, if you have a great performance on Saturday Night Live, it is a massive moment in culture for sure. So anytime that happens, it's just such a win.
Cool. Those are definitely huge opportunities, huge wins. Congrats.
Thanks.
I've got a few publicity questions.
Yeah.
Love to, get info. I think the kids call it alpha, alpha for their journeys.
I'll say
What is
I have no idea what that means. You are cooler than me. I know what I know what beta is, but I don't think I knew what alpha was.
alpha? From what I understand from my ventures into the NFT world was when someone did an interview and then dropped information that was brand new, like you hardly hear
Okay.
first.
Okay.
You were
Got it.
spreading alpha. Um, what is the hardest part about your job as a publicist?
The hardest part about my job as a publicist is definitely managing expectations and breaking through the noise. And by managing expectations, I mean, I've had artists that say, well, the first interview I ever want to do is going to be Rolling Stone. And I don't really want to do anything until it's like in book in Rolling Stone. Or the first TV I want to do is Saturday Night Live. And I'm like, okay, well, you better have the biggest fucking hit on the planet then, A, to be frank. And B, so a lot of times you have to say, I want that too. I 100% want that. I think that's completely attainable with these steps.
Mm,
Let's figure out where we can do X, Y, and Z and get you here. And don't get me wrong, there are definitely cases where people have never done interviews and they've been mysterious and they've not put themselves in the public eye until they reach certain things. I would say transparently, those are the exception and not the rule. It is possible, but again, if you look at someone like The Weeknd, who for the longest time never did interviews, you barely saw him, literally the Prince of Darkness, he very slowly and strategically throughout the years made himself more and more popular or excuse me, more and more visible.
mhm,
But he also had a massive underground following and massive hits with Trilogy. Um, so I think it's managing expectations, because you never want to crush somebody's dream, but a lot of times it's about education of, hey, like I want those things for you too. I think where your music is at currently, these are perhaps some steps that we could take to get yourself a little bit more visible by still being mysterious, but also still, you have to kind of work with people. Um, I mean, I jokingly said you better have a hit, but you can't actually say that to people. They're gonna not trust you. Um, the other thing I would say, what did I say? I said managing expectations.
managing expectations,
And what
and
was
then
the other
having
thing?
a plan, like,
Oh
having a
yeah, and then having a plan. I think because you're gonna get a lot of no's in this industry. You're gonna get a lot of, especially in PR, when you first start out, people don't know who you are. They don't know your email. They don't, they're like, who is this random person emailing me? It takes a long time for people to, know who you are as a publicist, know what kind of work you do, and that's why I think it's really important to have a plan of, okay, like I don't have a great relationship with Pitchfork, or I don't have a great relationship with NPR. Like, why don't I try to meet some people for coffee and just network and, become friends with people so that they know me on a personal level. And then as, you become friends with them. Oh, hey, there's this. I think you said you're really looking to do, Latin music, right? Like, I have this artist that could be really great, and kind of figuring out a strategic way to make yourself known in the industry without just bombarding people with email after email after email after email. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I definitely still do that. I'm sending a ton of emails to press all the time, but it's also friends that I've made, right? And having a managing those expectations and having a plan of, here's where I think we are, here's how I think we get there, here are some of the writers that I think could be good. Let's, systematically keep engaging so that, you know, they're like, "Hey, didn't you hit me like a few weeks ago about this artist? Like, I'm looking for an artist who knows a lot about hockey. Could we talk to your artist who you said loves hockey?" Again, these examples are all over the place, but they're the first thing that's
Like,
coming to
they're
mind.
they're targeted towards a Canadian audience.
Perfect. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. You are welcome, Canada.
That's funny. I mean, I agree. There's been a lot of people that I've interviewed so far that have said the same thing, be nice. Authenticity is kind of the main word that keeps coming up all the time, but it's no different than you and me. I mean, yeah, you might have been sending me pitches, but the banter and the rapport is always kind and cordial, and it's not just work. We ask about other things,
Yeah,
and that allows someone to develop a trust so that 10 years later, when you say, "Hey, do you want to jump on my podcast?" It's not a "Who are you?" It's a "Sure, let's do this."
totally. Well, and that is the other thing too, is like, I've done chats with interns or beginning, junior publicists, and they're like, "Well, you know, when they ask what's the biggest piece of advice, I'm like, this whole industry is about relationships. And
Uh-huh.
like, don't get me wrong, there's all this stuff about AI and how AI is going to take over our lives and blah blah blah. And while I am not the person to say whether or not that is true, the one thing that I will say is, my job as a publicist is to know and have relationships with the media well enough so that if I have to call and try to ask for a tough favor, or I have a an artist who has a very difficult thing they either want to talk about or say or have a statement about, I need to know who the best person is to go to for that, who will be sensitive enough, who will, you know, take that with grace. I also, if I, you know, have an artist who fits a very specific niche, I need to know who are fans of what things. And that's all relationship based. That doesn't, you can't get that from a spreadsheet. You get
Uh-huh.
that from knowing people, talking to people, working with people. And like you said, this industry is way too small.
Yeah.
Like, this industry is way too small. Please be nice to everyone. I know I swear and come off a little bit like, I don't know. I don't know how I come off, but at the end of the day, I try to be nice to people because it's too small of an industry.
Yeah. I mean, you can be yourself, you can swear, you can like whatever, hate whatever, you can have even different political opinions, and you can still be nice. Like,
Totally.
fundamentally, you
Yeah.
can get along with people just by being kind. I'm sure that we could chat for a while, and I don't wanna keep you, so I'll ask one last question,
Yeah.
just kinda, like, wrap things up here. What is, the most important thing, not about a publicist, but about publicity in 2025? So for artists out there, for publicists out there, what do you think the most important thing is right now?
Um, there's like 10 things swirling around my head. I think the number one thing is to be consistent. Um, and to be, oh, wow, this is gonna sound like a slogan. Be consistent and be persistent. So what I mean by that is, if you have an artist with a new project, it's like we talked about, it's constantly hitting them with new things. It's not just, if your one pitch that you're sending about an artist has talking points 1, 2, and 3 in it, and you're only resending talking points 1, 2, and 3, and you're not getting any new hits. Well, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Like, hit them again, try something new, And this goes for artists too. If you're self-pitching, because I do personally know a lot of artists who don't have a publicist, who are self-pitching and emailing certain people, and it's the same thing. Like, "Hey, I have a new tour, I have a new song." I think it's also too I don't think we need to be as precious when it comes to press, and what I mean by that is, back in the day, it was like, "We're gonna do 1 interview and that's it. We're gonna do 1 exclusive and that's it." The reality is that not everyone's gonna see that one thing. You need to be branching out, you need to you see it a lot with people like I think Ed Sheeran's doing a really good job of it right now where, the album is maybe out or coming out, but he's, like, consistently doing different appearances, being different places. I think Renee Rapp is doing a really great job of it right now. You know, I don't think it needs to be an always on approach as
Right.
opposed to, again, being consistent as opposed to, "We're gonna do stuff from the week of the album, and then we're done for the rest of the year." That's not gonna work. It's not gonna work.
Agreed. Artists, I know I said that was my last question, but I
No,
lied.
go ahead. I'm chilling.
Well, artists, like, I see this so much, so often. They spend all this time and energy and money developing music, developing an album, getting it mixed, mastered, whatever, paying for the artwork. And then all of a sudden, they want to release this thing and they realize publicists are asking for money, development companies like ours were asking for money. There's people that are like, yeah, you need the help and we can do this, but it's gonna cost. And they're like, there's no budget left. I just, expected someone to sign me and pay for all this stuff. How do you temper their expectations? How do you give them a dose of reality?
I mean, speaking specifically about publicity, I don't think that everyone who has a body of work is necessarily ready for PR, and by that I mean, if if you're a brand new artist and you barely have any followers and you barely have, you know, a following at all, don't spend your money on PR. Spend it on building up your followers, building up, your fan base so that when you do have a substantial following, you do have, a touring base that there's something to talk about. I mean, when I was working at the label, we would get artists that, were smaller and, it was kind of like we were building them, right? And even then, it's hard because I don't think that was obviously I don't even again, I don't remember how that worked in, like, their deal in terms of money, but if you're paying for this yourself, like, I would say wait to the point where you're like, "Shit, we really need PR." As
Uh-huh.
opposed to, like, "Can I maybe do some of this myself? Can I be doing Submit Hub? Can I be emailing people? Can I be doing smaller interviews on my own?" And then build it up to a place where it's like, "Shoot, we really need someone to, like, handle some of this." Now the developmental stuff, that's a little bit outside of my scope. I think, the problem is too is if you do too much on your own, then when you do start to hand over the reins, it's harder and harder. So I think figure out if I could give one piece of advice, figure out what is it you don't like doing. If you don't like managing your social media, you're still gonna need to shoot content, don't get me wrong, but, like, maybe give that over to somebody else. If you
Yeah.
don't like reaching out and pitching for press, if you're in that position to do so, perhaps give that to somebody else. Same with an agent or touring. Make sure that you're able to still have the bandwidth and time to do the thing that you really love doing, um, which is hopefully your craft and the art. Um, but yeah, I feel like that's a very convoluted answer, but that's what I would kinda say.
No, I think once again, you got a lot of insight there. We say the same thing. Our biggest our most popular packages are always the development bundles where artists will come to us and say, "Hey, we have an album that we want to put out. What do we need to do?" And typically, when you're doing publicity only, as you know, you'll sign a retainer, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, sometimes longer, depending on what the campaign is like. With us, we have a similar approach, but because we're starting with artists that are much earlier on, we tried to say, "Don't worry about the rocket ship. Don't even worry about the launch pad. We need to, like, till the soil and build the groundwork and lay the foundation,
Totally.
and if you're lucky during the campaign, we can do a bit of the other stuff like the publicity and the marketing and get you guys some interviews, playlists. But we need to look at your brand. We need to look at your
Yeah.
socials. Like, do you have the proper messaging? Are your social handles all the same name? The amount of people that have like at one, at six, at
Yeah.
nine on, and you're like, how's anyone going to know this?
Yeah.
Clean up foundationally at the bottom. Do as much legwork as possible before you really start to try to reach outwards.
Yeah. And I would add to that by saying, you know, I think, I've had artists come to me and say, I just feel like I don't have a brand. I feel like
Yeah,
I don't, I feel like I don't have a concrete, not, I don't want to say persona, but they're like, I feel like my brand isn't there. And what I've said to them is like, so I can help you show you where you are right now. Like I can say, from my perspective, this is what I'm kind of seeing. And this is what like the landscape is seeing. But I also can't tell you who you are. I
yeah,
can't tell you if, you know, do you want to be the same person on social media that you are in real life or on stage? I can't tell you that. That is a personal decision and choice. Some people are their authentic selves on social media when it comes to artistry. Some people aren't, some people only it's up to you what you want, and that is something that cannot be, I can't tell you what that is, especially in publicity. If anything, I would tell artists to really look at other artists, look at things that they're doing, say, "Oh, I feel like I could do something like that," or "I don't really like that. I feel like it'd be cool if we did something different." Like figure out what your personal preference is, because if you are just relying on other people to tell you who you are, and this is outside of like socials, like for the love of God, have all your socials be the same if you can. But I mean, from like a base level, like you were talking, like, you know, tilling the soil. I can't tell you who you are as an artist. I really can't. I can tell you, if you tell me what you want to be, I can tell you where you are now and maybe let's get steps to get here. But I cannot get that artist vision for you.
yeah.
I it's just I can't.
And whatever it ends up being, it has to be organic. If it's not,
Totally.
people are gonna know, and then it's just not gonna work out. So identify who you are, and then from there build.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah, it's all about authenticity. People, like we talked about, people want to know who you are. They want to relate to you, and the best way of doing that is to be authentic to who you are as an artist. And by the way, if who you are as an artist is different than who you are when you wake up in the morning day to day, that's okay, as long as that fits your vision, you know?
Yeah,
Um, so yeah.
cool. Taylor, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it, and
Yeah,
love to
thank you.
actually.
This has been fun.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, 1,000%, anytime. And thank you so much for putting up with my 200 probably plus, definitely plus emails for sure.
It's a pleasure because it led me to here, so it's all worth it.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it.